Desert Spring Auto Flush DS/AF5 disassembly. All right, today we're going to dismantle and see what we can see inside this Desert Spring Auto Flush unit. It's a DS/AF5. I've had it for quite some time, and we had a problem with it. That's what the unit looks like inside. This part here just slides out. It's a little stiff, but that's because it's locked into position. And this is the inside of the unit. There's a 34 volts DC solenoid here that activates the plunger inside this to open it up or close it. And you've got a voltage board here that creates that 30 volts DC from your 24 volts AC coming into the unit. There's a circuit board in there that generates the timing for having it turned on and off. So every, I believe it's 48 hours, it opens up for a couple minutes and then shuts off and then carries on. So that's what this whole circuit board is all about. Not much to it other than that. I'm not going to take it out because it's all glued in here, and it's pretty fragile here, so we're going to leave it like that. There's some dip switches right there, and those dip switches can be changed to change from 48 hours to 24 hours to 12 hours on how long it actually takes to actually create a flush. And basically, once it's activated, turns on the solenoid, water is flushed out for 90 seconds, and then it resets its cycle and it's good for another. And surprisingly, this relay or solenoid is actually it's a 34 volts DC. So the input is actually AC 24 volts. So that's what this little circuit board does here. It actually converts the 24 volts AC to the 34 volts DC for the solenoid. The solenoid is basically 4 screws. And what I found was there was a piece of plastic that had actually embedded itself in the little reservoir here. I'll show you what I've done on ours. We had a problem, and related to the fact that the plunger that is supposed to stop the water from flowing, not related to this, but it's supposed to, well, I guess it is related, because once you drain the water, it has to refill it, and there's a float inside the unit, and what happens is the float sometimes can go haywire, and we've had that happen where the water started leaking. So I end up putting a drain on there, so that the water can only reach a certain height. And so this is the unit here. It's just the solenoid that activates this little plunger, and it either turns on or turns off. And there's a rubber seal here that is in pretty bad shape. I'm going to have to see if I can replace that. Looks like possibly an O-ring. I'm going to see if I have a spare O-ring. I've been able to pull the rubber, and it's in pretty bad shape. Not sure if I can find a replacement for that. I'm going to see if I can find possibly an O-ring or something to replace that with. So I found an O-ring that seems to fit. It's a little bit thicker than this one here. This one is 3 millimeters, and this one is 270, 2.7 millimeters, and this one here is 310. But it does fit in the groove. And if I have to, I'll reuse this one. I can possibly turn it upside down and reuse it. So I found an O-ring that seems to fit. It's a little bit thicker than this one here. This one is 3 millimeters, and this one is 2.7 millimeters, and this one here is 310. But it does fit in the groove. And if I have to, I'll reuse this one. I can possibly turn it upside down and reuse it. And I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to try and snug this up and see if this actually works. It might be too thick. Of course, trying to find a seal that would work perfectly would be next to impossible, I'm sure. This is no good. So I'm just going to use the old one. Let's see if it... Well, looks like it has sealed properly. And to put it back together, we just slide this into here between the two pieces there. Slides in like that. This is the Desert Spring unit installed on our furnace. Notice the added emergency overflow tube on the left.